Module 6, Managing the Food and the Health and Safety. First, we'll start to talk about the food service program. Food service programs are important because the nutrition affects mental functioning and the physical well-being of children in your care. It's important to provide a variety of food choices, pleasant meal times, served to appeal to children's taste buds. However, I want to also add that it's an opportunity for children, especially picky eaters, to try new foods. Teacher participation by sitting down and eating with the children, depending on the type of program you're in. And then for young infants, holding the baby while giving the bottle. So these are just basic caregiving expectations when we talk about food service in a childcare program. So menu planning is the next area we'll discuss. Total daily food requirement depends on the number of hours the children are spending in your program. So 8 hours or less, the requirement is one meal and two snacks, or 2 meals and one snack. 9 hours or more, which is quite a bit of a long day for children. 2 meals and two snacks, or 1 meal and three snacks. So you typically would offer the snack in the mid-morning or mid-afternoon. And then you have to make sure you are offering food at intervals of not less than 2 hours and not more than 3 hours apart unless the child is sleeping. Nutritious meals and snacks can be selected from the following food groups. We've got the bread, rice, cereal, and pasta group, the vegetable group, fruit group, milk, yogurt, and cheese group, meat, poultry, fish, eggs, and nut group, fats, oils, and sweets group. So considering in your menu planning, you'll always want to factor in the USDA food pyramid, and also make sure you're doing a little bit of research into what some very healthy foods are that children will like, and you also need to factor in allergies, which we'll talk about a little later. Food preparation and storage. So depending on how your program is set up, you may have an employee actually doing the food service for you, the cook, or a person hired to do that, or it may be the teachers preparing it, or another option still might be that children are bringing their own lunches in or food in. So if you do have a cook, knowing proper techniques for holding and preparing food, obviously we always want to practice good sanitation. Food should be conveniently accessible to preparation areas. 40 degrees is typically what the temperature should be for a refrigerator to avoid food poisoning, and then 0 degrees for freezer. Making sure you're putting leftovers in a safe spot and keeping it at the right temperature is important, because children obviously are going to have leftovers. And making sure you have sufficient space to accommodate the large containers and packages is important also. Health and safety programs. When we talk about health and safety, we first start out talking about immunizations, medical screenings. Making sure you have the proper paperwork on children is also important. Having a description of any disability or developmental delay a child has. Some results of screening such as vision and hearing are helpful, and then dates of communicable diseases when immunizations were last completed at the pediatricians. As far as your staff, you want to have health records that comply with the local requirements also. So that would include a health history, physical exam, vision and hearing screening, and then your TB test. You also want to remember that the health records must also comply with state and local requirements, and then you must have the immunizations and occupational health concerns. So obviously those are different things you'll need to research and make sure you're following the requirements of your local area with the staff and the children. Exclusion policy. So typically a fever over 100 is what the exclusion policy includes. we need to be careful, because what happens sometimes, and we all know this, that if a parent would happen to give a child ibuprofen in the morning, they're not going to show that fever right away. So making sure you keep an eye on children. And we all know when children come in and they just don't look right, or they look tired, or there's just something not right. So you keep a close eye on those children in particular. Um, Other exclusion policies include diarrhea, vomiting, or upset stomach. Typically, we always want to suggest parents wait 24 hours before sending them back. Um, Unusual or unexplained loss of appetite, fatigue, irritability, or headache. Again, parents know children best, but you also know these children well and know when something's not right. Um, any discharge or drainage from eyes, nose, or ears, which obviously you want to remember, pink eye would fall under that category also. Disaster and emergency planning. The director and staff must be trained to handle certain procedures. So, for example, building evacuations, weather emergencies. Nowadays, we have terrorist threats that have to be there have to be procedures for those. An accident or injury. Making sure you have supplies in the correct spots that can be accessible to this evacuation area. First aid kits, food and water, flashlights, and then having possible activities such as crayons, books, and paper, depending on how long you'll be in this area. So procedures should also be in place for medical emergencies, children that become ill, minor and major accidents, and then transportation for emergency care is also included under this category. Child abuse, recognizing and reporting abuse. When we talk about abuse, we always must remember anyone working with a child, especially teachers, directors, childcare, schools, anyone working with children is a mandated reporter. So what that means is you must report any um, any suspicious thoughts you have that a child is being abused, so that it may be explored further. So we as professionals in the education field and the child care field must always report any concerns or anytime we suspect that there is any type of abuse. So this is really important to remember. Prevention on the premises when we talk about abuse can be having two adults in the center at all times. So this also protects you, so there cannot be any accusations made against you as a teacher if you always have two adults in the center. Reducing caregiver stress and anxiety with breaks and low teacher-child ratios. So also giving yourself time to just step out and just give yourself a moment away from the children is really important. A pre-employment screening. So if you're a director, it's expected that you do this screening so that you can identify potential child predators that you may be hiring. Criminal history checks also need to be checked. And then having clear visibility in the classroom and common areas. So being able to see all parts of the classroom at any point in the day is important for protecting children. Staff should be trained on signs, symptoms of child abuse. Again, if child abuse is suspected, the center and the teacher is mandated to report these suspicions. Familiarity with state laws and local rules of child abuse is really important for all child care directors and staff. When we talk about legal issues regarding health and safety, we really don't want to throw around the word lawsuit very often, but unfortunately it does occur at times. The possibility of lawsuits can be minimized by the following: promoting an open and trusting communication with parents. So again, having that relationship with parents is so important to your role as a director and a teacher. Maintain well-trained staff and with adequate numbers to ensure proper supervision so that there aren't unexpected accidents. Purchasing adequate liability insurance and accident insurance for your program. Checking applicants' references so you know a little bit more about your applicants. Keep records of staff meetings and training sessions, so document everything, which does become a lot more work, but it's important to protect you and the center. And then finally, choose an attorney who is familiar with child care laws in your state. But hopefully this will be something that you will not have to use very often, or hopefully at all.